On today's episode of Pop History Podcast, it's the end of an era on Saturday nights. Camp Crystal Lake is open for business. And after scoring a hit with Beth, Peter Criss is going to make it solo. Let's kick it!
You're listening to Pop History Podcast, a show which opens a chronological time capsule of our past. If you're a child of the 80s, a pop culture historian, or just a fan of nostalgia, keep tuning in for your weekly lesson of pop history. Now here's your host, Jay Jackson.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Pop History Podcast, where we look at everything that was rad, sad, and meh in May of 1980, all while we count down the top 10 Billboard hits of the week, ending May 17th, 1980. Let's get to the countdown. Kicking off the countdown this week is a rock band that formed in Southern California in 1970. They were highly influenced by the melodies of the Beach Boys and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, as well as progressive sounds of King Crimson. They broke through in 1978 with their first hit, How Much I Feel, and gained more fans touring with Fleetwood Mac, Heart, and the Doobie Brothers. From the recently released album 180, here is Ambrosia with Biggest Part of Me. Was Ambrosia with Biggest Part of Me, kicking off this countdown for May 1980. Before we get to the fun stuff, let's take a look at the real news happening this month. Pope John Paul II issues a directive barring all Roman Catholic priests from serving in public office. Most immediately affected is Representative Robert F. Drinan of Massachusetts, the only Roman Catholic cleric in Congress. Drinan would not seek re-election and finish his term in January of 1981. Also during Pope John Paul II's trip through Africa, 9 people are trampled to death in Zaire during an early morning rush to get a glimpse of the Pope. Unemployment rises from 6.25% in March to 7% last month, the highest level since last August. Industrial production plunged by 1.9% and new housing construction declines to a 5-year low. On May 18th, Mount St. Helens explodes into a volcanic eruption that causes widespread damage across the Pacific Northwest. When all was said and done, 57 people were killed, 250 homes, 47 bridges, 15 miles of railways, and 185 miles of highway were destroyed. Geologists call it the largest volcanic eruption in historic times in the contiguous United States. In Miami, sniper fire, arson, and looting leaves 19 dead and 165 injured, and forces authorities to order a dusk till dawn curfew and call in 1,100 National Guard troops. The uprising began when thousands of African Americans angrily protested a not guilty verdict that cleared 4 white former policemen who had been accused of the beating death of Arthur McDiffle, a black Miami insurance executive, last December. Well, some things never change, huh? 2 men who climbed the Statue of Liberty to protest the imprisonment of a convicted murderer in California caused an estimated $80,000 of damage to the 300-foot-high national monument. The men, identified as 35-year-old Edwin Drummond, an experienced mountain climber, and Stephen Rutherford, a novice, vowed to remain on the statue throughout the night to dramatize their protest. At one point in the climb, Drummond and Rutherford unfurled a large red-letter banner which read, "Liberty was framed. Free Geronimo Platt." Elmer Geronimo Platt was a member of the Black Panther Party and was serving a life term for the 1968 murder of Carolyn Olson, a Santa Monica schoolteacher who was shot down on a tennis court during a robbery by 2 men. Authorities say they will not try to remove the pair forcibly. The chief park ranger said there's really no way to stop the climbers until they get to the top or fall. seeing more and more ads for these new cordless telephones. A magazine for Cobra cordless telephones reads, "Wherever you happen to be, inside or around your home, your Cobra phone cordless phone goes where you go, because there's no cord to tie you down." Later it says, "There's a wide choice of Cobra phone cordless phones, even a combination cordless phone clock radio, computer memory for automatic dialing, a two-way intercom, automatic redial of busy numbers, and remote charging are just a few of the exciting features available." In Fort Wayne, Vernon Jordan Jr., president of the National Urban League, is shot in the back at his motel after he had made a speech earlier. After 4.5 hours of surgery, his condition is described as satisfactory. In an interview with Women's Wear Daily, 43-year-old Joan Kennedy explains why she would be a better First Lady than Rosalind Carter.
"I'm a very sophisticated lady. I just have so much going for me, and I can make so many more contributions."
Mrs. Kennedy recently received a master's degree in education. Republican Ronald Reagan and Senator Edward Kennedy capture the California primaries towards the presidential election, though President Carter still leads Kennedy overall. George Bush throws in the towel and ends his 2-year run for the presidency and throws his support to Ronald Reagan, the man who defeated him. With Reagan holding a distinct lead over Bush, campaign funds have quickly dried up. The Pentagon reveals that military officials increased their level of nuclear alert briefly when a computer problem caused a false alarm indicating a multiple Soviet missile attack. No bombers were launched, although the engines were started. In the NBA playoffs, 20-year-old rookie Magic Johnson leads the Los Angeles Lakers to a big upset as the 76ers lose 123-107. Johnson scored 42 points and grabbed 15 rebounds.
The next time you're scrambling for something different at breakfast, if serving up something new is getting really grilling, if the idea of baked potatoes sounds half-baked, try twice-baked.
No wonder it's so popular. America's best cheese, KRFT.
Longtime fans of Pink Floyd may have been upset with the recent single, not just because the band was known not to be a hit single type of band, but also because of what was then called the disco beat behind the song. The concept was suggested during the recording process by producer Bob Ezrin. David Gilmour talked about the disco beat in 2009, saying, "It wasn't my idea to go do the disco music, it was Bob's. He said to me, go to a couple clubs and listen to what's happening with disco music. So I forced myself out and listened to loud, four-to-the-bar bass drums and thought, God, awful. Then we went back and tried to turn one of the song's parts into one of those, so it'd be catchy. And in the end, it doesn't not sound like Pink Floyd." Here is Pink Floyd with Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. Geez, now that I heard about that disco beat thing, it's like you can't unhear it. Last month, it was our number one song. Now it's slipped down to number 9. Featuring one of rock's most memorable double negatives, We Don't Need No Education, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 gave Pink Floyd their first top 10 hit and first number 1, staying at the top of the charts for 4 weeks last month. In music news, The 15th Annual Academy of Country Music Awards is aired on NBC. Big winners include Barbara Mandrell, George Jones, and Dolly Parton, with the Song of the Year award going to He Stopped Loving Her Today by Bobby Braddock and Curly Putman. Kiss drummer Peter Criss announces he's leaving the group to embark on a solo career. The other Kiss members claim his departure was due to his hard drinking and missing practice. After a 3-year hiatus, ZZ Top is back and has played to an estimated 800,000 people during their current tour, which began last November. Blondie's Debbie Harry signs with Merjani Jeans, the people who market the Gloria Vanderbilt line. She'll be featured in the company's new TV ad campaign. New this week on vinyl, 8-track, and cassette are The Wheels of Steel by Saxon, Motorhead's first live album called The Golden Years, 21 at 33 by Elton John, The Village People with Can't Stop the Music, Roses in the Snow by Emmylou Harris. Speaking of Kiss, their last album with Peter Criss until 1998, Unmasked, came out this month. And after 2 albums titled Diana Ross and one named Ross, the Motown diva is back with her 10th solo album. This one is called Diana. Another artist who doesn't give much thought in album titles, Peter Gabriel releases his 3rd consecutive self-titled album, which was nicknamed Melt by fans due to the album cover. Also out this month is a 2nd completely solo studio album by Paul McCartney, titled McCartney 2, in which the former Beatle performed all the instruments on the album. The record is a significant departure for McCartney's work in the Beatles and Wings, as it relies heavily on synthesizers and studio experimentation. The album received mostly negative reviews from critics and fans who found the songs a large step away from what they were used to with McCartney. Here is the 3rd single from the album, which will not appear in our top 10, Temporary Secretary.
Mr. Marks, can you find for me someone strong and sweet fitting on my knee? She can keep her job if she gets it wrong. Ah, but Mr. Marks, I won't need her long. All I need is help for a little while. We can take dictation and learn to smile. And a temporary secretary is what I need for to do the job. I need a temporary secretary, temporary secretary, temporary secretary, temporary secretary. Mr.
Wow. At number 8, singer-songwriter Kim Carnes kept on trying to score a hit by releasing 4 albums throughout the 1970s that never quite broke out. She wrote this next song and brought it to the attention of Kenny Rogers. The country star enjoyed the song so much that he insisted it be recorded for his new album with one stipulation. Carnes had to sing the song with him in a duet. Here is Kenny Rogers and Kim Carnes with Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer. That was Kenny Rogers and Kim Carnes in the first single from Rogers' 9th studio album, Gideon. This track would peak at number 4 on the Billboard chart this month, but it fell to number 8 this week. In Hollywood news, MGM and CBS announce a joint venture for the worldwide marketing of video discs and video cassettes, which would include MGM's library of more than 1,600 films. 3 men waving guns awaken actor Darren McGavin and his wife, actress Kathy Brown, at 5:30 in the morning in their home and demand to be shown where the money is. After being given about $200, the 3 fled with a television and silverware. The trio entered the McGavin's Coldwater Canyon home by forcing open a sliding glass door and ransacked the lower level before waking the couple in their second-floor bedroom. McGavin is probably best known for playing the father in 1983's A Christmas Story. This next artist hits the top 10 in 1977 with Just the Way You Are, returned in 1978 with My Life, and this week, Billy Joel scores his third top 10 single with You May Be Right.
Remember how I found you there, alone in your electric chair. I told you dirty jokes until you smiled. You were lonely for a man. I said, take me as I am, 'cause you might enjoy some madness for a while. Now think of all the years you tried to find someone to satisfy you. I might be as crazy as you say. If I'm crazy, then it's true that it's all because of you, and you wouldn't want me any other way. You may be right, I may be crazy, oh, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for. It's too late to fight, it's too late to change. You may be wrong for all I know, but you may be right.
That was Billy Joel with his second single from the album Glass Houses. The song would peak at its current position this week, but this won't be the last we hear from Billy Joel. He'll become a defining artist of the next decade. We have one TV debut this month. After 10 years on the radio counting down the music hits on American Top 40, Casey Kasem moves to television for the syndicated show America's Top 10. The show was a program of music hits based on the Billboard Hot 100 chart with some selected music videos. Other notable features during America's Top 10 included Pop Music in the News and Pop Music Trivia. This sounds familiar. The show was hosted by Casey Kasem until 1991, when replacement hosts kept the show afloat for another season. A few made-for-TV films premiered this month. On ABC, the sequel to the 1977 animated television special The Hobbit is aired, titled Return of the King. And over on NBC, Tony Curtis and Bill Macy star in The Scarlett O'Hara War. Let's take a look at Rolling Stone's rock album chart for the week of May 15th, 1980. At number 10 is Off the Wall by Michael Jackson. Number 9, Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. At number 8 is Elvis Costello and the Attractions with Get Happy. Number 7 is The Pretenders with their self-titled debut. Number 6 is the American Gigolo soundtrack. Number 5 is Heart with Bébé Lestrange. At number 4, we have Linda Ronstadt with Mad Love. Number 3, the previously mentioned Billy Joel with Glass Houses. Number 2, Against the Wind by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. And at number 1, again this month, is The Wall by Pink Floyd. Now, from Elvis Costello's fourth album, which was at number 8, Get Happy, here is the lead-off song from the record's second side, a song originally recorded by Sam and Dave in 1967. Here's I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down. At number 6, no band members earn their PhD. They decide to name their band Dr. Hook anyway, with the hook being a reference to singer Ray Sawyer's eye patch. His eye patch would mistakenly lead some fans to believe that Sawyer was Dr. Hook. But when anyone asked the band which one of them was Dr. Hook, they always directed them to their bus driver. From their 9th album, here is Dr. Hook with Sexy Eyes.
Sexy eyes, getting down with you, I wanna move with you.
Dr. Hook was quite the genre-bending band throughout their nearly 20 years of existence. Their songs range from the current funk disco hit Sexy Eyes to acoustic ballads like Sylvia's Mother and soft rock songs like the cover of the Rolling Stone. In addition to writing their own material, the band also enjoyed performing songs written by the poet Shel Silverstein. Now it's time for our TV theme trivia. Do you remember this classic theme song? Sorry to take you out of the past and into the present, folks. We have to get some business taken care of here. Is this episode worth 25 cents to you? If you'd like to open your wallet a little bit and help us out, you can find us at patreon.com/pophistorypodcast, where you can donate to help keep the show running at the highest level possible. Donations start at just $1 a month. That's an episode of Pop History Podcast for the price of a game of Space Invaders. Other ways you can help us out to support the show is by leaving an iTunes review. Those help increase our visibility on Apple Podcasts. Keep clicking the likes on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That helps keep our posts active and accessible to more potential listeners. Drop us a line at pophistorypodcast@yahoo.com with a pod distance dedication, which we include in a future episode. We thank you for listening to Pop History Podcast and look forward to your feedback. Now, back to the show.
Are you kidding? Switch toothpastes. Loverboy here needs his fluoride paste.
Oh, Mom, I want a gel for fresh breath.
Pat, we switched to Aquafresh. Now we fight cavities and freshen breath.
Aquafresh gives you all the long-lasting fluoride protection of the leading paste and all the breath freshener of the leading gel. Concentrated in one toothpaste.
Fluoride for cavities
And gel for fresh breath.
We'll switch to Aquafresh.
Double protection Aquafresh fights cavities and freshens breath.
Right, Mr. Walters?
This show was inspired by a nonfiction story printed in the New York Magazine titled Night Shifting for the Hip Fleet. Although nothing from the story was used from the show, the premise inspired creators James L. Brooks and David Davis to develop the sitcom Taxi, about several drivers who worked the night shift for a New York cab company. The show was a critical success, more so than a commercial success, winning 18 Emmy Awards across its 5 seasons. A true ensemble cast if there ever was one. It starred Judd Hirsch, Jeff Conaway, Danny DeVito, Mary Lou Henner, Tony Danza, Christopher Lloyd, Carol Kane, and Andy Kaufman. Interesting fact about this show, it originally ran on ABC for its first 4 seasons. The first 2 were a big hit for the show. When they moved the show from Tuesdays to Wednesdays for season 3, and then to Thursdays for season 4, the fans didn't stick around. The show almost moved over to HBO. The new cable network was looking for original programming. The deal didn't fall through, and the show's final season aired on NBC. At number 5, at the midway point of this week's countdown, is a returning track from last month. Here's Billy Preston and Cyrita with You, I'm Born Again. That song peaked at number 4, but fell to number 5 this week in 1980, and it may be the first time Billy Preston and Cyrita shared a tune, but it certainly wouldn't be their last. Cyrita, who was on the short list to replace Diana Ross when she left the Supremes, would team up with Preston for several singles in the future, including Go For It, One More Time for Love, and Will It Come in Time, but none will find the success of With You, I'm Born Again. Now let's take a look at television news. After holding out, Johnny Carson signs a 3-year contract to continue The Tonight Show. Under the new agreement, the show will be trimmed from 90 to 60 minutes and only air 4 nights a week starting in September. The final episode of the 5th season of Saturday Night Live airs on NBC. With the departure of John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd at the end of the 4th season, changes would continue to come, as the 5th season would turn out to be the last for everyone in the current cast, including Bill Murray, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Lorraine Newman, and Gilda Radner. After executive producer Lorne Michaels cited burnout as a reason for him taking a year off for the show, the network insisted that the show continue. Angered by this news, the entire cast followed Michael out the door. The 6th season will begin later this fall with a completely new cast and new writers. CBS gives hockey another try, airing Game 6 of the Stanley Cup playoffs on a Saturday afternoon. It was the first full American network telecast of an NHL game since 1975. And the game would not be televised again on American network television until the 1990 All-Star Game. Despite winning 5 Academy Awards, The Deer Hunter is rejected by all 3 television networks due to its violence. A new poll cites that 1 out of 5 families watch cable TV. CBS airs the musical special Johnny Cash, The First 25 Years, with Chet Atkins, the Carter Family, Carl Perkins, Dolly Parton, Chris Christopherson, and many more. The 7th annual Daytime Emmy Awards are held this month to commemorate the best in daytime programming. The winners include Guiding Light, Douglas Watson of Another World, Judith Light of One Life to Live, and The $20,000 Pyramid. Actor Lee Majors files for divorce from his actress wife Farrah Fawcett Majors, citing irreconcilable differences. The couple separated last month. Tom Redding, age 38, the child star who portrayed Jeff Miller in Lassie, is one of 4 people arrested in a cocaine raid in Lake Arrowhead, California. His attorneys say they believe there was insufficient evidence to file any charges, and he was later exonerated of any charges. The all-new CNN begins operation this month. 2 million households will be able to see the new channel at its launch. It's the brainchild of Ted Turner, owner of Superstation WTBS. At number 4. Debuting this month at number 4, here is Lips Incorporated, with the lead single from their debut album, Mouth to Mouth. Here is Funky Town. Lips Incorporated formed in Minnesota as a group created by writer-producer Steve Greenberg, who enlisted lead vocalist Cynthia Johnson and a changing lineup of session musicians. They had released the single Rocket in 1979 before recording their debut album. Now let's take a look at the comings and goings in May 1980. Born this month are actress Ellie Kemper of The Office and The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and musicians Gautier and Andy Hurley, the drummer of Fall Out Boy. Those we lost this month include actress-singer Lillian Roth died of a stroke. After becoming a breakout star in vaudeville and films in the 1920s and 1930s, Roth's alcoholism affected her film career. Her autobiography, I'll Cry Tomorrow, became a hit film in 1954, starring Susan Hayward, who was nominated for an Academy Award for her performance. Roth was 69. Actor Hugh Griffith dies on May 30th at the age of 67 after suffering a heart attack. Griffin won the 1959 Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role in Ben-Hur. And after sustaining critical injuries in an auto accident last month, bass player of the Marshall Tucker Band, Tommy Caldwell, passes away 1 month after the death of his younger brother, Tim Caldwell, who also perished in an auto accident. Tommy Caldwell was a founding member of the Marshall Tucker Band. The group formed in 1972 and are perhaps best known for their 1977 hit, Heard It in a Love Song. And in one of the earliest losses to the New Wave world, Ian Curtis, lead singer of Joy Division, committed suicide by hanging in his kitchen of his Macclesfield home on May 18th at the age of 23. Curtis's suicide came just 2 months before the release of the band's second album, on the eve of what would have been its first American tour. Joy Division developed a sound and style which made them one of the pioneers of the late 70s post-punk movement. As the band's popularity grew with the release of their first album, Unknown Pleasures, Curtis suffered from personal problems that included depression, a failing marriage, and epilepsy. He found it increasingly difficult to perform live concerts, during which he sometimes suffered seizures, and his fear of flying made the upcoming U.S. tour a challenge. Here is the posthumous single from their second album, Closer. Here is Joy Division with Love Will Tear Us Apart. Number 3. At number 3 this week is a band that formed in Australia in 1975. Although they toured the U.S. in 1977 supporting Rod Stewart, the band could not find stateside success. In 1979, they recorded and released Life Support, which contained a 5.5-minute version of the song Lost in Love. The track caught the attention of Arista Records boss Clive Davis, who had the song re-recorded and released as a single in the U.S. in early 1980. The new version was included on their 1980 album titled Lost in Love. Here is Air Supply with their first U.S. hit, Lost in Love. That was Russell Hitchcock and Graham Russell, otherwise known as Air Supply, with Lost in Love, their first single from an album of the same name. This track hit number 1 on the U.S. and Canadian adult contemporary charts, but only peaked here at number 3 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. We have some great new movies hitting theaters this month. First up, the story of a group of teenagers who go to a campground and are brutally murdered one by one is told for the first of many times in Friday the 13th. The Nude Bomb, a comedy based on the television series Get Smart, was released starring Don Adams. It was retitled The Return of Maxwell Smart for television showings later. The teen musical drama Fame also hits theaters. The film and the title song were both big hits. The Long Riders is a western with an unusual method of casting 4 sets of brothers in the film: James and Stacy Keach, David, Keith, and Robert Carradine, Dennis and Randy Quaid, and Christopher and Nicholas Guest. Gary Busey and Jodie Foster join the carnival in McCartney. Gong Show creator Chuck Barris writes, directs, and stars in a fictional week of his life in The Gong Show Movie. A film in which a happy hooker goes to Hollywood is released, appropriately titled The Happy Hooker Goes Hollywood. The fourth full-length Peanuts movie, Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back, hits the big screen. The Hollywood Nights starred Tony Danza, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert Wool, and Fran Drescher, and was a comedy about auto-obsessed college kids in Beverly Hills. Found life as a cult favorite later in the 80s due to repeated late-night airings on HBO. Two of the greatest storytellers of the 20th century come together and blend their vision to create what has been called a masterpiece of modern horror. Filmmaker Stanley Kubrick brings the Stephen King novel The Shining to the big screen. The film stars Jack Nicholson as an aspiring writer and recovering alcoholic who accepts a position as an off-season caretaker of an isolated hotel in the Colorado Rockies. Although the film has been criticized by King fanatics as being very different from the novel, it is now regarded as one of Kubrick's finest films. But that wasn't the case upon its initial release. Critics complained about the slow pacing. The Shining was the only one of Kubrick's 9 major films to receive no award nominations from either the Oscars or the Golden Globes. The film did win something this year, a pair of Razzie Awards for Worst Director and Worst Actress for Shelley Duvall. And we return to a galaxy far, far away.
Luke Skywalker and Han Solo rescued the princess, destroyed the Death Star, but their story didn't end there. Now, the creators of the biggest smash hit of all time bring you the next episode in the Star Wars saga, The Empire Strikes Back. Continuing story of our band of heroes: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca. And introducing Lando Calrissian. It's an epic of romance, of heroes and villains, they cross trackless voids to unknown worlds. A galactic odyssey against oppression. A big, new, sprawling space adventure in the Star Wars saga, The Empire Strikes Back. Coming to your galaxy next summer.
The second film is actually part 5 in George Lucas's planned middle film of the middle trilogy. Makes sense. So, The Empire Strikes Back hits theaters. An early review of the film from the Daily News reads, George Lucas must be planning to make the Star Wars movies his life's work. Empire arrives with the subtitle Episode 5. Lucas is talking about 9 episodes. Thus, the series will go both backward and forward in time. This is a project either exceedingly audacious or exceedingly pretentious, or maybe both. As years go by, boys and girls will turn into men and women, and Lucas will become as venerable a figure as Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the Star Wars ending will be in the stars. Film critic Judith Martin of the Washington Post, who did not see the original 1977 film, criticized the film's middle-of-the-story plot, which she claimed had no particular beginning or end. It is obvious now that that was the concept which Lucas had intended. The film was a huge hit of the year, becoming the biggest film of 1980, and when adjusted for inflation, the film is currently the 13th highest-grossing film of all time in North America, and it has become one of the typical fan-favorite films of the Star Wars franchise. Oh, and if you didn't recognize the actor doing the voiceover in the trailer, it was none other than Han Solo himself, Harrison Ford. Go ahead, let's do it again. I'll wait. At number 2 this week is a song which sat at the penultimate position on the Billboard Hot 100 for 4 straight weeks, never finding that top spot. Here's the lead single from Christopher Cross's debut album, Ride Like the Wind. That was Michael McDonald singing backup with Christopher Cross in our number 2 song, Ride Like the Wind. In 1999, the satirical newspaper The Onion published a story with the headline, Christopher Cross finally reaches the Mexican border, with the story referring to many of the lyrics of this song. Cross reportedly appreciated the honor. Now it's time for us to look back at the one song that surprisingly never made it to the top 10. A song that is well remembered today, but wasn't quite as appreciated back then. It's our song that should have, but didn't. This month's song that should have, but didn't, is the band's third single from their debut self-titled album. The song hit number 1 in the UK and number 2 in Australia, but only peaked at number 14 on Billboard's Hot 100. Here is The Pretenders with Brass in Pocket.
I can't miss the beats. Got a new skank. Stories. Got something. When can I tell? Gonna make you notice. Gonna use my arms. Gonna use my legs. Gonna use my style. Gonna use my style. Gonna use my fingers. Gonna use my imagination. Oh, 'cause I gonna make you see. Nobody else here. No one like me. I'm special. So special. I gotta have some of your attention. Give it to me, 'cause I gonna make you see. Nobody else here. No one like me. I'm special. So special. I gotta have some of your attention. Give it to me.
That was Chrissy Hines and the Pretenders with Brass in Pocket from their self-titled debut album, a song which Hines was never particularly proud of. She reportedly said the song was released over her dead body.
Wendy's has the taste.
Single, double,
And triple. Hamburgers fresh, not frozen. We have the taste. So let the others have their slogans. Wendy's makes them fresh each day. Serves them up to you hot off the grill.
256 plays.
The way a good restaurant will. We have the taste. Wendy's has the taste. Wendy's old-fashioned hamburger taste. We have the taste that Wendy's taste. We have the taste that Wendy's.
At number 1. At the top of our list this week is a band that formed when the guitar player, who is currently in the band The Stilettos, formed a romantic relationship with one of the band's vocalists, a girl who was a former waitress and Playboy bunny. In 1974, the duo split with the Stilettos and formed their own group. At number 1 this week is Blondie with their second U.S. number 1. Here's Call Me. Although Blondie formed in New York City, the band would find success down under long before their home nation. In the Flesh hit number 2 on the Australian charts in 1976, while they would not see the Billboard Hot 100 until their 10th single, Heart of Glass, in 1979. That does it for another edition of Pop History Podcast. Tune in next week when we look at June 1980. Remember, life is short, so be nice to each other.
Thanks for listening to Pop History Podcast. Please leave us a review on iTunes, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or email us at pophistorypodcast@yahoo.com. Your host and producer is Jay Jackson. Theme music by Jason Parkhurst. All other music used herein is the property of their respective songwriters, publishers, and recording companies, and are used within this podcast for historical educational purposes. Pop History Podcast is copyright 2017.